Hi there, this is Will here from Smarter Performance, and what you're about to see is a clip from our webinar on youth baseball development that we first broadcast back in March of 2021. The clip features Alan Dean, who is our Director of Performance and lead S&C coach. And what Alan discusses are some of his key principles around speed development, how you can integrate speed work and speed development into your existing baseball practices, and this idea that in order to develop speed, probably the most important thing we can do as coaches and parents is just give young people the permission to move fast. Finally, he also references how it's really important that we don't mix and conflate genuine speed work with conditioning and allow that to take away from the development work we're trying to achieve. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the clip. If you missed any of the others, then do please be sure to check out the hitting session delivered by Liam Carroll, and of course myself talking about pitching and throwing. Do feel free to let us know if you have any comments or questions in the comment section below, and if there's anything we can do to help out with your training or development. As always, please feel free to reach out. So without further ado, here's Alan.
As Will alluded to, one of the key aspects of strength and conditioning, particularly for baseball, but this covers a variety of sports, is that we need to give young people the opportunity to do things at the time that they need to do it. And specifically when we look at the pillars of performance. Now, I have this diagram here, which we utilize, and you'll see a similar diagram from Will. It's Will that created this. I have individualized speed, fun, and safe as my 3 pillars of youth performance for strength and conditioning. The central pillar being strength. And for me, speed is something that it is important to allow young people to feel the want to do, the need to do, to make it something that they are desperate to do. And I try and incorporate speed work in whatever format I can in order for them to have fun. Because if we can have fun, we can engage them, we get them coming back, and we can slowly develop and get that compounding consistency that we need in order to help them develop as athletes. So the underlying principles of individualized speed, fun, and safety are my tenets to ensure that youth strength and conditioning achieves the objectives that it needs to achieve. It isn't necessarily about lifting weights as heavy as you can, as early as you can, in order for them to grow the guns and the six-pack. That is not what I'm about, and it's not what the program is about in order to develop performance. So if we take the first tenet, the central tenet, that main pillar, speed. And as Will mentioned earlier, this is a phrase that we utilize. We want to give permission to move fast. And it sounds a bit esoteric to give somebody permission to move fast. But often, children, young people are not sure as to how and when they should be moving quickly. So we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper. My objective whenever we're working with young people is for whatever they're doing, that they should be the person that gets there first. Our inherent, deep, ingrained movement skills, why we're bipedular, is to move quickly and to move as fast as we can to do whatever it is that we're trying to do. There's the analogy of being out in the jungle and you're confronted by a lion and you're with your friend and your friend's shaking and you're going, what are you worried about? You're worried about the lion. He said, no, I'm not worried about the lion. I'm worried about you because I just need to get faster than you to get away from the lion. Obviously, we don't release lions when we're teaching young people speed skills, But the context is we're wired to move quickly. And by giving them permission to move fast, to be the first person, to be as fast as they can be, is really, really important to then develop the skill set that they need, which we're going to talk about in a few slides' time. Another thing that kind of overarches this is that speed is not conditioning. Conditioning is allowing the body to develop specific energy systems that are required for the sport that you're undertaking. To develop speed effectively, you need time to recover in between the bouts of speed. By ensuring that that time is given, then you can work on maximal speed. And by breaking down the components of speed, which we'll cover in a few slides' time, it will give you an understanding of why we're not utilizing speed as a conditioning. It's not run out to second base, walk back recovery, run out to second. That is, in my view, that is not speed, that is conditioning. When we're looking at developing speed, we're looking at different aspects of the movement. So recovery between the reps is key. No, I'm not sure any of you have been track athletes. I was a 400-meter athlete when I was in the dim distant past of my younger years. And I used to train at the same time as a distance group. And I was always getting grief from them because the amount of time that I spent wandering around waiting for my next rep, often it'd be 4 or 5 minutes recovery. But that's because of the intensity of the work that I was doing. They were having a 2-minute recovery between their reps because they were trying to work on specific things to do with their energy systems, where I was allowing my body to recover. So the next rep that I did was as effective as the first one. So recovery between reps is really important. And it might be that we can utilize that recovery time to do something else. We can work on baseball IQ. We can work on aspects of technical skills. There's nothing to say we can't layer in different approaches to allow us to maximize the time we have. But we do have to respect the need that speed has to have recovery in order for it to be effective. So I'm going to give you an example in baseball as to why speed is important, why raw speed is important. This is Chicago Cubs. It's outfielder Tony Campana. It's his first ever major league home run. It's a little bit unusual. Hopefully, for the baseball aficionados, they know what they're about to see. I had the fortune of 2008. I went out to the University of Cincinnati and spent 10 days working with Brian Cleary, who was the head coach of University of Cincinnati, a D1 school, which at the time was in the Big East. Brian was a colleague of mine in Great Britain baseball, and I went out to spend time working with their players as a consultant for 10 days working on speed. In the early part of the season, I went out in April. On that team was Tony, who went on to play for the Cubs and the Diamondbacks as an outfielder. And also on that team was Josh Harrison, who had a good career at the Pirates. So I'm just going to play the video and just watch what raw speed can do for you. So a little bit exciting for your first ever major league home run. Now, obviously a bit unfair, but those of you that know, Alonso's a first baseman who found himself out in left field. I think he was exposed a little bit in left field, although it was at Wrigley Park. So it just shows you that raw speed. Tony's not the biggest man in the world. He was about 5'11", soaking wet. He probably weighed about 75 kilos, so not a big man, but boy, could he move. Tony's history is worth looking up because he had childhood cancer and he came through it, and just that raw lefty talent was amazing to watch. But the context of why we're seeing the videos, because the speed, that unadulterated need to get round the bases as quickly as he could, it's just an awesome sight to see. So when I see children, young people move that way, I love seeing just pure raw speed and wanting to get round as fast as you can. Oh, so move on to the next slide. Sorry. So carrying on our theme on speed, and I'm going to consider the kind of aspects of speed that we need to think about, and quickly look at something that Henk Krahenhoff came up with, which is the 4 T's of speed, and they're really relevant. First thing is talent. There is a genetic disposition. Okay, some people are wired to move more quickly than others. We recognize that. We work with what we have, and we look to improve. There's always an opportunity for everybody to improve. The second aspect is training, exposing the players to opportunity to be fast. So this is why we say now, give permission to be fast, utilize speed in any way that you can in order to develop that opportunity to be fast. Temperature, probably a T you weren't expecting. The higher the temperature, the higher the metabolic processes within the muscles and the transfer of muscular contractions will allow. So when we're in cold conditions, it's really important to take time to get to the point where they can move quickly. This is due to an increased activity of certain enzymes in the body, which allows the body then to contract quickly and fire at a faster rate. If the temperature isn't suitable, so when we're talking temperature in this country, we're getting to 16, 17, 18 degrees, you can really get warmed up quite quickly and get into speed work. If it's less than that, you maybe have to take a bit longer, and you have to build into that process to allow yourself to be able to develop speed work. So we have to include the warm up to ensure that we are getting maybe some technical work that allows you to build up into that speed element. So temperature is an important factor. So if you're indoors, great. If you're outdoors and it's not so warm, take the time to get to the point to allow speed to be developed to its maximal potential. And then the last T is technology. There's a lot of technology out there for using for speed, but we need 2 things, our eyes and a stopwatch. We don't need to be spending money on fancy technical equipment. Great if you've got it, great if you get access to it, but we don't need it. We can see speed. We've just seen an example of it with Tony Campana. With a stopwatch, it gives you a method to feedback. Those are the key things that we need, our eyes and a stopwatch. If they feel faster, they are faster. They'll be moving quicker. So feed them back in asking your players, asking young people, how did that feel? When you made a change to something, did you feel faster? So getting feedback is important. So speed prioritization is an aspect of strength and conditioning that's really important to me. By working through deliberate practice, when we're looking at working on improving our speed, I take a part-whole approach. Now, so running fast, as we've seen with Campana moving around that third base to score at home plate, that's a beauty, a great example of what we're looking for and how somebody moves effectively, trying to run as quickly as you can in a circle. So how do we approach it? We have to break it down, and we have to work in specific aspects. There are 4 key factors within that: posture, mechanical drills, arm action, and skill of acceleration. We work on those in that particular order. So we work first on our posture. We try to ensure that our torso stability is as important as functionally working as possible. So what do I mean by that? So what we're looking for is we're looking for effectively between the diaphragm and the knees, stiffness. We don't want a bend in the body. We want that to be working as one solid unit. That's our engine. That's where we're going to transfer the power, either downwards or upwards. We need to control that. And we have things like the wall drills that allow us to work and control our position, to enable us to keep our posture, to ensure that we are mechanically running as efficiently as we can. We then bring in mechanical drills, such as A drills, B skips, pogos, to ensure that we are teaching the mechanical aspects of sprinting to enable us to move quicker. And when I'm teaching young people, one of the things that I try to get across them is that we are looking for them to be springs, not sponges. And we utilize our finger. So when we bend our finger backwards and forwards, we don't have, well, that's a bit spongy. It's not, there's not a lot there. We put our thumb in the way and we create this power. It's very powerful movement. So we're trying to do that with the ankles, knees, and hips in particular, where we're trying to create something called joint stiffness, which allows the tendons to rebound and create an awful lot of energy and utilize that energy as effectively, as efficiently as we can. So when we are working on these mechanical drills, one of the key aspects that we're trying to do is ensure that that tendon energy is being utilized in the right way. Arm action is something that people often don't think about with regards to speed, but your arms dictate the speed of your legs. The faster you move your arms, the faster your legs will go. And we do specific drills for that, whether it's sitting down, whether it's working on moving very, very slowly with the arms, but fast legs, and then all of a sudden bringing in faster arms, and away we go. And then to ensure that we build all of this into allowing to develop our ability to accelerate and move as quickly as we can from a standing position. And skill of acceleration is something that takes a long time to work on, but there are a multitude of ways to do it, multitude of fun ways to do it, and a multitude of ways to ensure that the young person who's working on these particular skills can see the development that they're going through. In particular, 0 to 5 to 10 meters as an area that we're working on. It's a great distance to work on because it's not too far. And if we go back to our previous slide, it allows the minimal recovery. So the recovery time isn't too long. So if we're working in small groups of 3 or 4, we can get through time the 4th person's gone, the 1st person's ready to go again because they've had sufficient recovery time. But the whole aspect, the whole thing about speed prioritization is this process called myelination. And myelination is where we are laying down fat around our nervous system. The best example I can give to you, we want as much myelination on our working muscles as we can get. If we can get our nervous system and our muscular system to work as efficiently and as fast as we get, we are developing myelination. So by understanding that process, we're in a better position then to ensure that speed is working. So to understand the process, we need to understand what myelination is. So myelination, if we go back to our childhood, for some of us, this is relevant because phones and such like, mobile phones and such like weren't in. So we have one can, another can, and a piece of string, and we can talk to one another with it. So that's our base level. That's as lower myelination level as we're going to get. And then we go all the way up now to super fast fiber optic broadband, which allows a communication at speeds that is so far away from the two cans and a piece of string. But myelination is that process of layering up the myelin levels across the nervous system to get to the point where we're at super fast fiber optic broadband. So our development, our skill is to take them from two baked bean cans to fast fiber optic broadband speed. That would be the absolute design and end game, what we're looking for when we're developing speed. And myelination is the technical term for us demonstrating it. So I got a very quick acceleration drill here. So this is an example of making fun whilst you utilize and work on an acceleration. Very, very straightforward. And there are tons of these, and I'm more than happy to share. So if anybody's interested in what types of drills I work with, but that's an example of just making a fun drill. And kids love it. They love these drills. So when talking about individualizing, we've all seen examples of it where we have the two 13-year-olds next to each other, separated by a week in their birth date, but one's 4'8" and one's 6'1". Both the same age, biologically very, very different. And we need to accept the fact that they're biologically different. And we need to understand that those individuals have different needs. And by understanding that, we need to make sure that we are aware of what they're going through during their growth. So for me, I'm looking at something called peak height velocity. So as they're growing, we measure, and we need to measure in order to find out that point in their development where they're growing at their quickest. And that is fundamental, understanding where they're at. So if you're working with a youth group, we need to be looking at their height growth. Also, kids play a lot of sports, and it's difficult because we want them to play multi-sports, because we want them to transfer foundational skills that they utilize in multi-sports to improve coordination, improve body awareness, fundamental movement skills. But sometimes, and I'm sure you've all seen this, or maybe experienced this, but there are some young athletes who play everything just because they're good athletes. So we need to understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that all those sports that they play are going to naturally transfer across to baseball. We need to be aware that as they get older, they're having to contextualize what they're doing in order to be in a position to make the most of the development they've got, and then allow them to then move into the sport or a couple of sports that they're going to start to specialize in from their mid-teens onwards. But it's important that we give them opportunity to do different sports, because it provides them with an athletic development background that ensures that all the bases are covered. So aspects to consider for the individual: fundamental movement skills. By that, we're looking at things such as pull, push, squat, hinge, pull and carry, the big 5 movement patterns. A lot of sports will allow this to occur. If we need to develop these, this is when we start to think about the strength aspect of strength and conditioning. But we have to consider that young people are not many adults physiologically. There are things going on in their bodies that as adults we don't have. They utilize systems in a slightly different way as they're growing. Again, as adults, we do things slightly differently. They're a development process, just in the same way that their myelination process is developing, so are things like their cardiac skills, their ability to utilize their lungs, their ability to utilize the hormones in their body to develop strength. We have to remember that there are not many adults, and we shouldn't train them the same way that we train adults. And most importantly, and this comes back to the growth aspect, their specific background as to what they're doing with different sports and different coaches, and the stage of their physical development, that we need to take their needs first, not the team's. And I know that can be a hard thing sometimes for youth coaches to take on board, particularly at certain times of the year, but we really do need to listen to what they need as opposed to what the team needs. So the fun aspect of it, try to make the sessions as much fun as you possibly can. Look at the movement patterns going on there, and those four youngsters chucking a ball in the air. We have to integrate the following: fun technical drills into baseball. So either it's base running drill, base running teams, throwing relays. There's just two. I'm sure the innovative youth coaches that we've got in the call, and I know some of them on there, I've seen some of the fun things that they get the teams to do. If you can integrate speed into those and make them fast, that's ticking many, many boxes for me. S&C work to technical work. Allowing S&C warm-ups in particular to develop the technical skills that they need. So throwing a ball, catching, jumping, stopping, changing direction, getting to the ground, getting back up again. These are all aspects of technical work which can be embedded into S&C warm-ups. But for me, one of the most important things is the use of external cueing with young people. As they respond and understand this better, them saying maybe move your hips back, just engage your glutes a bit more. That's something that children don't necessarily understand. What they will understand is jump up and try and touch the sky. Run as fast as a cheetah. Those are external cues that will allow young people to understand what they're being asked to do, why they've been asked to do it, and the way in which they can comprehend in their world and their view. By internalizing cueing, we don't give them the opportunity to maximize the learning opportunity they have at that moment in time. And there's some really cool resources for that. And the last thing is really to consider there are youth S&C coaches out there. They're desperate to work with teams. And more importantly, they're very keen to work in sports that are different than rugby or football or cricket or netball or hockey. They're keen to work in sports that develop their skill set. So if you are interested in having an S&C coach come along, and you don't know where to, please get in touch and I can get you in contact with some organizations that I'm a member of, and we can try and help you find an S&C coach to come along and help you, even if it's just part of a session, but just to give you some understanding of what they do, enable you to maximize the training that you've got. And the last thing here is just really to emphasize this. This is a youth team, and this is integrating some speed work. There is conditioning within it because of the context of it, but I just like the idea of making it fun. So if you have more than one team doing this, you can time the team doing their base running. So just to finish off, a quick video. So that's the, just stop that. There we go. I'll stop sharing now. So that drill in particular is emphasizing key aspects of base running. And the gentleman concerned was saying about having it as a conditioning drill. But I can see that being utilized with groups of runners on the bases and having them as individual teams and testing them as teams to allow you to do that. That's my presentation finished. I mean, one of the key things I wanted to get across is to make sure that we understand that central tenet of speed, but it's individualized and it's fun and it's safe, and that we allow young people the opportunity to be as fast as they can. So guys, that's my presentation. As Will said, we've got an opportunity later on at the end to ask questions, but I'd like to pass back to Will now and to carry on.